All right, hello everyone. My name is Savannah, and today I'll be discussing doctor-assisted euthanasia and whether or not it's a matter of quality of life or quantity of life. You may hear me say doctor-assisted death, suicide, or euthanasia interchangeably during this speech, but they all mean the same thing. That being said, let's get started. Have you ever experienced the pain of watching a loved one go through a terminal or chronic illness? Or have you ever seen the effects of someone else going through this? Diseases like terminal cancer and Parkinson's are excruciating ways to pass away and are extremely painful to the patient. That is why doctor-assisted euthanasia has been legalized in several states. Obviously, doctor-assisted euthanasia is a very case-by-case action, but many states have yet to legalize it. This is a disputed topic because it deals with something that is so final, such as death. It is so controversial that according to the Hastings Center of Bioethics briefing, the American public and medical professionals are deeply and immensely divided on the matter. Most cases that utilize this doctor-assisted suicide involve patients that have several months to live. What you don't know is that these last months are excruciating and painful to the patient. It's distressing for the patient, and it's hard for the family members to watch them go through all this pain. So because of terminal cases like this, doctor-assisted euthanasia came about. And it has been helping people die peacefully and painlessly ever since. In fact, this method of dying has been used for terminally ill couples. This is a more enlightening use of this method because many times when older couples have terminal illnesses and one passes away, pretty soon after, the other one passes away from a broken heart. So when a couple is both terminally ill and in agony due to a disease, doctor-assisted suicide allows them to let go of the pain and exit this life together. This topic is controversial for several reasons. It has to do with death, autonomy of the patient, and it is highly debated whether or not it goes against the ethical part of the doctoral oath. The doctoral oath states that a physician should do no harm, but it also states that they must respect patient autonomy, according to the AMA on physician-assisted suicide. Autonomy of life is a large factor in the suggestion of this procedure, but whether or not it is against the ethical doctoral oath to do no harm is what is debated today in states that have not yet legalized this. The AMA Code of Medical Ethics also states that physicians must provide appropriate comfort and adequate pain control to their patients, allowing doctor-assisted death to be practiced where it's legal. However, the AMA as a whole voted in June of 2019 that they were going to uphold this position against doctor-assisted euthanasia, so it remains extremely up in the air whether or not medical professionals are for or against this practice. Nonetheless, according to Yale Journal of Biology and Medicine, lethal injection of medicine to end a patient's suffering with all of the other precautions taken is indeed, quote, humane and compassionate, unquote. So this is obviously a hot topic of debate in medicine today. Now, there are several ways you can think about this touchy subject. For starters, there are those who agree with this policy in its entirety, for it pertains to autonomy of the patient. Since this practice is seen at the end of a terminally ill patient's life, why should it be up to a complete stranger whether or not someone can utilize this procedure when it does not apply to them? This point is interesting and can be viewed the same way as abortion rights are seen in the US, especially because these sorts of practices are carried out on a case-to-case basis. And really, it does come down to the decision of who is involved, not to the decision of those who are against it. These practices and procedures are also in place in order to prevent patients who are terminally ill and have reached a point in their life where they are ready for the end from taking matters into their own hands and going about this conclusion of life in a dangerous and less peaceful way. The next point of view are those who are completely against it, and this could be for several reasons. It could be against their religion. The condition of the patient may be fully undetermined, or the patient is just too distressed from their condition to understand the full consequences of such a final practice. A major flaw of doctor-assisted death was made apparent in an article called 12 Myths About Physician-Assisted Suicide and Medical Aid in Dying. The author, Dr. Ronald Pies, confronts the controversy regarding mental illness screening before qualifying for this procedure. Now, in the state of Oregon, where this is legal, it is not required by law to go through any mental health screening before qualifying or going through with this procedure. Not only is the lack of screening for depression or any other mental illnesses a deep flaw, but a lot of the time, physicians aren't comfortable performing doctor-assisted death, or they feel the emotional toll of the practice once performed too many times. Finally, there are those who are for this practice but believe that there should be regulations and strict rules in place. This is the condition that we are currently in the states of the US that have already legalized this. For the most part, Oregon qualifies for this, minus the mental health screenings. But this is especially important because doctor-assisted death is considered the final resort to a condition that has already been treated through palliative care and hospice. Palliative care is the practice of assisting a patient at the end of life in order to make them as comfortable as possible for their death. However, this doesn't always keep them relaxed. So then doctor-assisted euthanasia becomes an option. There are certain guidelines and regulations that must be met before the consideration of qualifying for such an ultimate conclusion of life. For starters, most patients involved in these processes have lost a large percentage of their quality of life and can't do things they enjoy anymore. They generally spend most of their time in hospitals, they have terminal illnesses, and are constantly in excruciating pain. This means they can't spend time with their family and friends as they once could, and they certainly can't enjoy activities they once did, besides laying in a hospital bed 24/7. So although this is a very disputed topic in the US and all around the world, the option for doctor-assisted euthanasia should be a viable one for those who qualify. There are already regulations in place, and those should remain between a patient, their families, and their doctors. This procedure is performed, like I've said before, on a case-to-case basis, so it's difficult to be fully for or against this procedure. However, whether or not it is an option should be fully up to the doctor and patient involved. That being said, those advocating for the removal of this policy are not the ones who are living in misery and agony. They aren't the ones that are bedbound in a hospital for most, if not all, of their time. They aren't the ones that would consent or go through with this practice. So why should anyone be involved that isn't a doctor or their patient? When it comes down to it, it is a question of quantity of life or quality of life. But if a patient can't live their best lives at the end of their lives, doctor-assisted death should be an option. What kind of life can you live if your condition is fatal? Thank you.